I am Quo, and am with this instrument at this time. We are most filled with joy to greet each of you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator that feels your presence as we do, as a portion of its being, and as all the things and manifestations in all of the creation throughout the universe. We thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules as seekers of truth to come to this circle of seeking this afternoon and to blend your energies in the love and light of the Creator together to make that which we all are, a portion of the Creator with connections to each other that are eternal. We would ask our perennial favor that you take each word and thought that we speak through each instrument with what you might call the grain of salt. If it does not ring of truth to you, does not give you the feeling of something you already know that has come out of your subconscious mind through your heart, then leave it behind and take away that which has meaning for you. We are not what you would call figures of authority. We are seekers like you. We have moved a bit further upon the path we all are upon, toward becoming one with the Creator. So with that said, we would ask if there is a query with which we may begin.
Yes, Quo, I have a question. I hope it's okay to ask. I've read so many of your words over the last year that I feel like there is a friendship and a connection with you. And I'm sure many people in this room feel the same. In the spirit of love and friendship, I wanted to ask how your journey is doing. How are you doing?
I am Quo, and we are aware of your query, my sister. We are quite honored that you have asked as to how our own spiritual journey is going. May we say that you and each entity within this room as spiritual seekers of truth are one more step along our path of being of service to others. For as we have left the third density illusion and moved into the levels of the fourth, the fifth and sixth densities, we look back and see how much energy is made by spiritual seekers of truth, such as you and everyone in this circle, and so many other circles around the world who are wanting to know more about their spiritual journeys. This gives us an opportunity not only to be of service to them, but to move forward in our own spiritual path. We are all moving on that same path of unification with the one infinite Creator. And when you ask us questions and seek more about your own journey, you allow us to do the same with ours. We thank you for your query, and we ask if there might be a follow-up, my sister?
No. Thank you very much for sharing.
I am Quo, and we thank you, my sister. Is there another query at this time?
I have question. I feel that on our journey and our task to feel empathy towards others that often I am, and we are rejected or shut out by those who we are trying to show empathy to. How best can we deal with the rejection in attempting to show empathy to others?
I am Quo, and I'm aware of a query, my sister. This is a most important query. The concept here with which you deal is your intention, the intention to be of service to another, to feel empathy for them, to do whatever you can to be of service to them, is all that you can do. However, you must also realize that if they consciously do not recognize or accept your attempts to be of service, that the level of their deeper mind, the mind of their spirit and soul, is aware of what you have attempted to do. In essence, you have planted a seed that over time, if you continue to offer your service, will be a fertilizer to grow that seed, so that your efforts might be realized as the flower is watered by the rain, by Mother Earth's soil, the sun of the sun logos. And yet, if you never see any results, any flower, any notion that they are receiving what you give still, you have done all that you can, and that is the most important thing, that you have given your all. You've opened your heart in love, and you shared it to the best of your ability. This is a situation that is so rampant throughout the third density experience upon your planet and upon all third density planets. For that veil of forgetting keeps most souls asleep, so they do not know such a thing as a spiritual journey can be had, that service to others is important. So do what you are doing, my sister. It is the best that you can do, and the Creator within you and within the one you attempt to serve is most grateful for your efforts. Is there a follow-up query, my sister?
No, thank you.
I am Quo, and we thank you, my sister. At this time, We would ask if there is another query to which we may respond. We are Quo.
Yes, Quo. I have a question. The Christian Bible has actually several creation stories, and their origins are questionable. Can you provide an accurate explanation of the origin creation of our species?
I am Quo, and I'm aware of the query, my brother. We find this a somewhat difficult query to speak to in a direct sense through this means of vocal channeling, for there are various aspects that limit our ability to share openly, one being what we would call the law of free will, in which it is your sovereign right as a species to tell your own story and to discover your own origins. Another is the somewhat difficult nature of transmitting complicated metaphysical and spiritual information through this means, for a question such as the origins of you as a species is not as simple as your mind trained by the third density might comprehend. There is a great imprint upon the way that your mind can conceptualize things like cause and effect and what leads to a species coming into being. This is not a simple process or explanation. The introduction, as you spoke within this query, of the holy works of your peoples, and referencing those as points of contradiction and confusion contributes to this difficult situation of offering insight into your query. But we will attempt our best to offer a brief overview of how one might conceptualize the idea of the creation of the human race in particular. We would begin as we typically do, by pointing out that your origin as an individual and as a species and as a planet is the same as all origins, and that is in the one infinite creator. The rest, you might say, is just details, a narrative imprinted upon the great potential of the creator in order to allow that creator to have an experience, to understand what it means to be, what it means to relate, what it means to travel upon a journey. Without the descent, as you might say, from the one infinite creator into the creation, these things would be impossible. And so we would pinpoint a true origin within the vast, infinite potential of the creator. This is an important point, for this is not just where you began, but where you will return to, and the entire point and goal of your journey through the creation. And so we would recommend that as one ponders such questions, regardless of the motivation of the pondering, that this remain a touchstone for you. It is within this potential that you are able to open up and sanctify, you may say, what we have called the details, to bring a sacred aspect to the narrative, and to understand that you are not just an individual experiencing an individual journey, but you are the creator. And no matter where you came from, your nature is the same as the nature of your other selves and as of the creation. To continue and to, shall we say, skip many of the details, there has been a process from that origin of infinite potential, of continually distilling and putting boundaries upon that potential so that what manifests from that potential becomes more and more intelligible. We have described this process in terms such as the logos and sublogos. This is a somewhat different perspective on that system of cosmology. As the potential continues to be refined, it is, you might say, harvested, each moment of experience becoming distilled into the next moment, and so on and so on. This happens at a great macrocosmic scale until you reach a standpoint where there are what you recognize as the galaxies and the stars of your creation and the planets and the beings upon them. In the what you would identify as earlier times of this narrative of creation, there was not what you would recognize as your very specific, constrained experience of the third density. The distinctions made by your third density mind splitting up the cosmos into discrete patterns and entities was not necessarily apparent to those earlier entities, as all was seen as one. However, this did not yield the type of experience desired by the Creator, for though the entities that were manifest at that point did have individual wills, those wills were so closely aligned with the will of the Creator that it was not an essential and true experience of life, as you would understand it. As this system of refining and constraining the boundaries of experience and potential continued, what has been identified as the veil of forgetting was discovered, and an illusory boundary was placed between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, and between the mind-body-spirit, causing it to form into the mind-body-spirit complex. These things appearing to be separate, but only in an illusory sense. It is after this point that you find your own beingness coming into creation within this particular solar system. A system of archetypes, or an archetypical mind, as you may call it, was developed by your sub-logos, your sun body, and has been at play, you may say, for many, many of your years upon various planets within your solar system. The story of these planets contribute greatly to your own planet's current situation. For the experiences of these planets, similarly to our description of the harvest and rebirth of each moment, contributes to your own present moment in very essential ways that we have spoken to in various ways in previous contacts with this group. The most significant influence is from the planetary sphere that you recognize as Mars and the planetary population upon that planet. This was a quite troubled population, and in that trouble yielded their planet uninhabitable. We of the Confederation attempted to serve this planetary population, along with the population of your own planet, as the third density dawned upon your planet by, you may say, overstepping our bounds somewhat, and thus introducing distortions into your planet that we have the honor and duty of helping to rectify in relationship with you. You can recognize many of these distortions in the impulse among your planetary population to form discrete, distinct, hierarchical social classes, elite groups, and see other selves as either greater than oneself or lesser than oneself. This influence has been exacerbated by those that we identify as the Orion group, attempting to energize these distortions that serve their own means and ends of introducing service-to-self impulses into your population. This is a somewhat simplified and truncated narrative of where you as a population may have come from and where that journey has contributed to your current situation. We would note that in this moment, as we have contact with this group, that your planet is in another process of transformation, and the distortions that we have spoken about are becoming more and more apparent, as we know that those in this group have witnessed and identified within the what we call planetary game of your politics and social spheres. But this exacerbation of distortions is a part of the dawning of fourth density, and its light shining through each individual in a way that makes such distortions unable to be ignored, and thus must be expressed in many ways, and some that may seem harmful. But we would point out that such a situation contributes to an environment rich with opportunities of service. The love that you are able to shine in such an environment is so much more meaningful because it is precisely so much more difficult to discover. And we would encourage each seeker who is aware of our words to not lose hope, you may say, and to instead double down into the heart and discover the light that is called forth within you by your circumstances as you witness them upon your planet at this time. Is there a follow-up to this query, my brother?
No, thank you.
We are quo, and we thank you, my brother. Is there another query to which we may respond?
Yes. It's my understanding that we are in the process of experiencing a timeline split, where on one hand you, the third density, you would have the third density timeline that still has the component of fear and service to self playing out. And then an alternative timeline where more fourth density, fifth density opportunities arise, service to others, exploration of love. And my question is, on one level, I'm very excited about this possibility and this process involving the ascension process, but I would like to know how to best, 1, anchor that love-based reality, and 2, to serve the individuals, maybe in my family, that is still anchored in that third density polarity, to best serve and support them in their choices of their reality. And I guess the third question is, how much interaction will be possible further down when this timeline split has actually occurred? Thank you.
I am Quo, and I'm aware of the query, my sister. We appreciate the detail and opportunity to speak to these somewhat difficult and confusing topics. We would start by addressing quickly and simply the idea of a timeline split, and a notion that there will be a bifurcation of reality as you would experience it. We find that there is truth to this idea, but that the terminology and the understanding of the nature of reality that you as a species have been able to grasp is somewhat misguided, and that the idea of a very discrete split whereby entities literally enter a timeline that is inaccessible to you is not the most helpful perspective as we would understand it for your current situation. This is because our message that we wish to share is that of the open heart and of service to others. And so long as you find yourself in an environment with a plurality of perspectives, where there is disagreement and misunderstanding and disharmony, and where there is a desire to share love and a desire to receive love, you will always have the opportunity in the moment to open the heart and to inspire others. This is, from our perspective, going to be the scenario as you would experience it in your life, moving forward up into a certain point at which your planet will eventually enter, with the planetary population alongside it, the fourth density. And it is then the case that there will be a split of individuals of the positive orientation remaining upon the planet, those of the negative orientation moving to an environment more suitable for them, and those who have not been able to grasp the needle, then moving to an environment more suited for them, where they can continue their journey and attempting to make the choice. However, this question is ever important in your current experience, for there are many upon your planet who have up to this point not been able to consciously recognize the calling to make the choice that we have called service to others or service to self. There is great opportunity for you as seekers upon the positive path, wishing to share the love and light of the Creator, to do so and to create inspiration and catalyst for those who feel a calling within the self but are unable to hear it coherently and to respond with the choice. This is, in part, a response to your other questions, and how may you serve best, and what type of contact with those others will remain. We will say, as we have said before, that the best way of service to others is to shine the love and the light of the one infinite Creator as it is known to the self. This is an incredibly individual process. One must come to a deep understanding of the self and one's own heart, and one must discover within the self the sacred sanctuary of the Creator within the heart in order to then turn back outward and allow that light to shine. This can manifest in many different ways, whether one chooses to serve directly and come into contact with those suffering and attempt to give them the things that they need to relieve their suffering so that they can have the comfort of taking that inner journey for themselves. It may come in the form of teaching and sharing information and inspiration that might allow one to discover within the self their own nature. No matter the form that it takes, the process is the same of moving inward and coming to a full knowledge of the self, utilizing those reflections of the creation about you, processing and accepting, and allowing your catalyst to do its work within you, to allow it to transform your heart and your mind. In doing so, you become a more transparent instrument that allows the light of the one infinite Creator to shine ever more clearly and ever more brightly in whatever way that light manifests in your life. Is there a further query, my sister?
Just a brief one. In this idea of timeline splits or whatnot, I wanted to just further ask the question about that. In my understanding, you just answered the questions about origins. There's been need for reset of this experiment for various reasons, but this time we are going through this transformation, this without the need for physical reset. Can you speak more about that part of the process?
I am Quo, and I'm aware of the query, my sister. We may speak somewhat vaguely, for this does indeed come close to the law of confusion or law of free will, and we do not wish to impose unduly and guide without responsibility your planetary population and the choices before you as a population. This query may depend on how one defines the notion of a reset. We take stock of your current situation upon your planet and realize that there is a high potential that you can sense for transformation, and often you may recognize that transformation requires destruction in some way, that whatever strictures or perspectives or institutions that reinforce the attitudes of the third density must transform in some way. And you will recognize within your collective mind the notion of transformation, often taking that of a destruction and a rebirth. We may say that destruction, as you would understand it in a physical sense, may not necessarily be a requirement for your planet to be born into the fourth density fully. Such destruction can take many forms, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, for individuals and for you as a collective population. We would point out that in almost all situations, transformation is uncomfortable and difficult. But for seekers such as yourself who have identified the inner light, can always rely on that light as a lodestar, a guiding principle through any difficulty or destruction. As you tap into this inner light, we would recommend for all seekers to also hold on to that archetype of transformation, understanding that the present moment's difficulty, so long as it is utilized and recognized for what it is, as an aspect of the one infinite creator manifesting itself, can always be transmuted and born again into something more essential, more in alignment and in tune with that inner light. And your planet and the population upon it can indeed transition through this period of difficulty into the density of love and understanding. And we are excited and ever-joyed to invite you on this journey with us. Is there a follow-up to this query, my sister?
No, thank you very much.
We are Quo, and we thank you, my sister. We would ask if there's a query to which we may respond.
Yes, Quo. I was wondering if you could provide the Confederation's view on CE5 contact protocols, which is the use of meditation and sending love and light out in the form of an invitation to make visual contact with an entity or craft. And is it possible that the Confederation answers that call?
We are those of Quo and have received your query, our brother. And we would begin with an understanding of the yearning from those of your people for contact with intelligence, which is beyond the illusion of consensus reality. Whether that motivation be for a deeper window into the nature of reality, how they and we all came to be here, what is the purpose of this grand design, or for an experience of the phenomenal and unusual, for something which excites the senses. There are a great spectrum of motivations which may cause one to reach out. Included among those who engage in this process, as you have named it, are wanderers, those who have a dim, or perhaps no, conscious sense that their origins are from the relative time-based perspective, not of this world, that they have a home elsewhere and seek contact again. Regarding the specific protocols used for this or any means of contact, this is for your peoples to discover, of course, through trial and error. At base, it is the desire and the intention which, when unified with others in group work, becomes powerful and becomes focused. That is the key to this sending of the request and the invitation. Steps such as you mentioned, including the meditation, the sending of the love and light and so forth, may refine and empower and enlarge this request and this invitation. And indeed, for any such endeavor, we would commend such activities as that of the meditation and that of the sending of the love and the light. For meditation serves the self and the group on multiple levels, including the focusing of the mind, the clearing of the distraction, the making of the self a more receptive vehicle to that which wants to be spoken, to the depths of one's being, or to those signals that may come seemingly externally. As to our response to such efforts, as you may imagine, we are not want to infringe upon the free will of your peoples, and must always take into account that very careful, always dynamic balance of the free will of your population. This is not, on our part, a politeness or timidity, but is rather a deep respect for the fundamental laws of governance and operation of the universe itself, which demands that the entity, at whatever stage of their evolution, from the first density onward through the third and upward, exercise their own will to discover that which they seek, that which they wish to create, that which they wish to manifest. However confused or uninformed or divided that free will may be, Such is the sovereign duty of each manifest thing in creation, which is imbued with this prime directive to use free will to walk their own journey. And while several gathered may wish for a specific experience, many others upon your planet may not. And as you are at once a lone agent or a member of a small group, you are also a member of a planetary population that, though it does not experience itself as one group, is one group from the perspective of the planetary mind. Nor can we, with our many commitments of service and abilities, meet every such request for a specific sighting as you would see it, though we understand that such may be quite impactful to those making such a request, even perhaps life-changing. Our primary hope and mode of interaction with those of your people is the stimulating of the spiritual seeking in a less apparent way, shall we say, a less flashy manner that, as you may see, spells it out for the entity. Instead, the entity which has been stimulated by the glimpse, the peak which may offer the plausible deniability, the alternate explanation, that entity which is inspired to move and seek by faith and faith alone, is that entity which may develop its will and be perhaps more successful in the penetration of the veil. However, in specific cases, as every situation is quite unique and every grouping doubly unique, there may be such times that it is appropriate to make a connection of some form, whether that be to the eyes, to the dreams, to the heart, to the minds, and so forth. We would not instruct as to refinement of technique, for the technique is secondary to the beingness, to the understanding of the motivation for such a group to operate and to seek accordingly. It is possible, in these circumstances as well, that such a group performing this seeking, though harmless unto itself, is also doing so as a distraction from the processing of their own catalyst, turning away of the opportunities of service that await them. We are not saying that this is the case across the board. It is just one possibility among those who look to the stars and ask to see. As we have said at the start of this reply, there are a great many possibilities. But to loop back to this needing to assess one's motivation and one's heart, that which unfolds for the self happens as a function of their beingness in the world, which is made manifest through behavior and will and faith. But it is at heart the beingness and the needs for the self, or the group self, upon the journey at that moment. Perhaps it is that by seeking something tangible or palpable and not satisfying the outcome, there is important learning offered to that group, not in the form of discouragement per se, but in the direction to look within, to see to the harmony of the group and so forth. We would ask if there is a follow-up to this query, our brother? We are those of Quo.
No, thank you very much.
And we thank you, our brother. Is there another query to which we may offer our thoughts at this time?
I have a question. So many people in this dimension suffer with excessive worry or anxiety, and they choose to take medicine to help them carry on and live their lives. How do medicines, the antidepressant medicines, affect our bioenergetic field? And does it limit or affect our spiritual journey, or our journey along this interdimensional path?
We are those of Quo and have received and appreciate your query, our sister. We would begin by expressing a well of empathy for you and those who walk this, as it is called in one of your scriptural works, Valley of the Shadow of Death. This realm where you as an individual seem to be cut off completely from everything around you in a deep, visceral sense. Cut off not only from others, from the world, and from the greater universe, but cut off, seemingly, from your very own resources, your own depths. You are a lone ship out upon dark waters, searching for some land mass, being called somewhere, something you remember vaguely, somewhere you need to get, somewhere where the sun may shine, where there may be nourishment and community and abundance, something known through myth or fairy tale that you know to be real, but seems ever elusive and ever out of reach. Sometimes on these darkened waters, a ray of sun may seem to shine through, and the storms dissipate, and the waters calm, and all seems well and manageable to some degree. One gains the long view again, and can look out over the horizon with an appreciation for the journey and the moment and the opportunities, and feel invigorated with strength and resolve. And then, seemingly in a flash, seemingly without advanced notice or explanation, it all vanishes. The waves come, threatening the stability of your lone ship and crashing over the decks, and the self is confused once again, unsure which way is up or down, unsure where one was headed, or if where one was headed was the right direction at all, and so on. We beg your pardon for this lengthy metaphor of the third density situation. We wish only to somewhat characterize and give articulation to your predicament, which may cause the reaching out for relief, release, and for a return to balance, which leads the self to those powerful chemical compounds which are offered by those of your pharmaceutical profession. It is a very understandable choice to make, and sometimes the only seeming choice for the entity who feels themselves on the brink or unable to continue their journey in a balanced fashion, and thus requires the help. We would expand the perspective to remind all who consider this question for themselves that all things are artifacts of the one Creator. Whatever the material manifestation, or its use, or its impact upon the self, all things are ultimately the one Creator. All are imbued with the entirety of the universe and with their own intelligence. And indeed, to your questions about the impact of these substances upon the seeker, they do, in a reverse and limited way, what work in consciousness itself is capable of doing. That is, whereby the mind is fundamental, and the body the creature of the mind, and the changes made on the level of the mind and or the spirit may manifest in the body, be those changes imbalanced or balanced, and thus create disease, or, as you term it, health. These chemicals may work in reverse to manipulate the physiology, the chemical makeup, the neural operation, and so forth to create the desired state to correct, as it would seem, the imbalance within the chemical body that has, as spiritual seekers know, its origins and consciousness itself in catalyst not used by the mind. This is a valid way to alter one's experience as well. We would only counsel that it is not without its repercussions and limitations, each of which are very unique to the unique entity and the unique journey of learning that they walk and the unique set of compounds that they may take. These chemicals may offer the entity enough relief or enough of a source of support that they may have space, as it would seem, within the mind and body to do the work that they were unable to without this support. On the other hand, these substances may muddy and make fuzzy the operation of the mind and the energetic body, and may even confuse the self further as it relies upon its senses of body and mind to understand itself and the world. The self experiencing this inner fog or numbness may misapprehend the lessons before it and its opportunities for service, and may not see thus the door within which would lead it to the mercy and forgiveness that is sought and needed within the inner sanctum of the heart, and may thus contribute to the self avoiding that catalyst which they seek to learn. We offer this perspective not with judgment for they who use such means. As we have said, the self is inundated in your world with catalyst that overloads you as entities and you as a group. It is something of a madness. There's a roaring ocean of stimulus and diversity and plurality of non-unified voices that spins you as entities around in 1,000 different directions. Without societal support, without a unifying narrative upon the social level, the self can become quite unmoored in having to find its own way, and having to choose what its own perspective is. Not just choose, but discern and figure out. And thus again, it may be necessary for the entity, at times, to turn to such means. We would just remind seekers that whatever the sources of support and meaning, or release and medication, and so forth, that one uses in the illusion, necessary as they are at times for portions of the journey, the seeker ultimately contains within themselves that which they need, that which may meet their questions, whether an answer or invite to the next step of the journey. And such is the transcending power of this inner light and this inherent, inalienable connection to the Creator, that the body may be, in some cases, tended to with the pharmaceuticals while the heart and the spirit are free, shall we say, to fly unencumbered and into the realm of the spiritual perspective and service. We are those of Quo, and would ask if there is anything further we may speak to on this topic.
No, thank you.
We are those of Quo, and give thanks to this circle of seeking, and to this instrument, and for the ardent challenging that he and all three instruments in this circle have exercised. We would ask if there is a final query at this time.
I have a question. The Creator can be sought in any circumstance and through modes as unique as the person. But what is the value of the monastic life for the seeker of the Creator? What is it? What advantages does it offer?
I am Quo and am aware of your query, my brother. This is a most interesting query, for there are advantages to the monastic life seeking the one creation, and there are disadvantages as well. Advantages are more obvious in that as one seeks to be within the monastic atmosphere, as you may call it, the focus of every day is upon seeking, finding, being, sharing the one Creator. This is a way of life of many upon your third density planet at this time. And for a great many thousands of years, this has been the way to move more rapidly by keeping that focus one-pointed during the day as much as is possible upon the Creator within and without. The disadvantages are that, with the monastic atmosphere, there is less interaction within other circles of being, such as this circle or the community, the workplace, anywhere that there may be interactions with other facets of the Creator that can provide catalyst, as you may call it, that seem to knock you off your center of loving all around you. And this type of catalyst can be food for growth, further growth through having to process the catalyst, and to discover that what was difficult has made you expand your nature of yourself, your image, your expression, and to find that food for growth continuously, and many other such experiences where catalyst is provided. In some ways, this could be said to be more effective for a certain type of individual. For each seeker of truth is unique, a unique aspect of an infinite Creator. So what we can recommend is that meditation be used to discover if there is one path or other that any seeker wishes to travel to become more aware of its spiritual journey, the lessons it has to learn to move further into unity with the Creator. Or if perhaps there might be a blending of the two paths in the manner in which you yourself have done in this past week. One so that at some point in the life experience, time may be taken out to become a monk and find only the desire to meditate, to seek that still, small voice within the self that gives you more information about who you are, why you are here, and how you may accomplish your goals. This is a journey that, in some fashion, everyone here on your planet is on, but not many are aware of it. For consciously aware seekers of truth, unfortunately, are few to be found. The consensus reality tends to numb the senses, to keep the pre-incarnated choices to move forward on the journey with spiritual seeking, and to keep unity with each other and the Creator beyond the ability to perceive. However, it is hoped that at some point, this sleeping nature of the various facets of the Creator that are lulled to sleep at the consensus reality might in some fashion be awakened by some religion, some philosophy, some exercises, some thoughts from guidance, from groups such as this that will go out into the world around them and share the kind of information that we are now sharing with you. So it is not a question that has only one answer, but rather there are as many answers as there are entities asking the questions. Do you have a follow-up?
Thank you so much for the opportunity, but no, that was good. Thank you, Quo.
I am Quo, and we thank you, my brother. And we thank each seeker here within this circle for being with us today and calling us to be with you. For the light that shines through all of your open hearts of love reaches to the high heavens and alerts so many angelic presences and higher density entities that the difficulties of third density Earth are not enough to dull the senses, to put out lights. For there are these types of circles of seeking all over your planet, and the light shines brightly. We thank you again for inviting our presence. We leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator in which we found you. We are known to you as those of Quo, Adonai Vasu Baragas.